Hello, everybody. My name is Cristiane, and I'm a certified exercise physiologist with Simply Health Solutions. And today I want to do things a little bit differently. I wanted to talk about the Canada's physical activity guidelines that are actually published by the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiologists, which is where my certification comes from. Hmm. I was curious and I was kind of thinking about what a lot of people's ideas of physical activity are. And the thing is, a lot of people who are outside of the physical activity space don't really know what the requirements are or the suggested guidelines are. And it can become really difficult to try to achieve a goal if we have no idea what we're even working towards, what things we should really be thinking about. So I figured I would share a little bit about the physical activity guidelines that are set out for seniors or those 65 and older. Now, keep in mind the Canada's physical activity guidelines. There are actually various different categories for different individuals, and even there are actually some really great resources for very specific medical conditions. But for today, and because my focus is usually with seniors, I wanted to talk about the seniors guidelines. So, when it comes to physical activity, the idea is we should try to be physically active pretty much every day and minimize sedentary behavior and achieve sufficient sleep, which I think is a really big difference from, I think, even a couple of years ago, where we kind of just focused on this idea of, yes, we want to get a certain number of minutes of physical activity, but there was no discussion about kind of what else are you doing in the rest of your day. So I actually really do like how CSEP went into this idea of the 24-hour day. So not just the idea of what are you doing when you're at the gym or when you're exercising, but what are you doing throughout your day. So, when it comes to physical activity, we're usually recommending that people try to achieve 150 minutes of aerobic exercise per week. And this can be broken up. It does not have to be 1 hour segments, does not have to be 30 hour or 30-minute segments. It can really be 10-minute segments. So, really just going for a walk around the block, going for a walk around your home. This you can really modify it to whatever you are currently able to do and what you have access to. Some people, um, maybe you're able to go to your local YMCA or your local gym. Maybe some people have aren't able to maybe leave their building, but maybe you've got a gym in your building. And then for others, maybe you're not able to leave your home. Maybe you're trying to figure out, how can I stay physically active within my home? Again, you kind of have to play around with it and see what you have access to and what you are interested in doing. But usually, my idea of moderate physical activity, I really like using what we call the talk test. Basically means is that if you're able to do your exercising and you're able to have a full on conversation without struggling, that is considered a light intensity exercise. When it comes to moderate, you're a little bit out of breath, but you can still kind of keep up a conversation. And then vigorous would be something where, like, wow, you really cannot um, say a couple of words, like you're really struggling because you're working really, really hard. I really like that because that's very relative to the individual. So let's say, for example, if you're a very, very physically active senior, maybe you've got to start running a couple of blocks before you start getting a little bit breathless. Or maybe you're somebody with very significant lung disease and it does not take much, maybe even just standing for 2 minutes is where you are kind of at your maximum. So again, really kind of customizing this to whatever you're able to do can be really, really helpful. So again, just think about trying to accumulate 150 minutes throughout your week. Kind of sprinkle it out there. Don't feel like you got to do it all in one go. And usually, what I like to do is this idea of really put it into your calendar, because a lot of times we as humans think that I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. 3 weeks later, we have not done any of our exercises. Very, very common when I get new clients where I ask them, how did your exercises go this week? A lot of times when they're still kind of getting used to it, they say it's like, "Oh, I forgot. Oh, something came up," right? But as you're doing it more and more often, it becomes a little bit second nature. And a lot of times you don't even have to think about it if you've kind of put it into your calendar, you've kind of built it into your day, becomes a lot more helpful. So, again, it's going to look different for every individual. So, maybe every morning before breakfast, you do a 10-minute um, ride on a stationary bike. Maybe before lunch, you go out with a couple of friends for a walk in the park. Again, it's going to look different for everybody, but just finding something that makes sense to you and is fun. Don't make it something that you're going to be absolutely miserable doing because then you're really just going to hate yourself and it's going to be really hard to keep it as a habit. Now, the other thing is the idea of not only the aerobic exercise that can be really helpful for like your brain and your heart, and all these other things, you also have to include muscle strengthening exercises. So, this can include anything from lifting weights, if you've got a couple of exercise bands, body weight exercises. You really don't have to get anything very fancy. Um, exercise bands can be relatively cheap to buy. Um, weights, again, you can kind of shop around. You can kind of see what are out there. Even the dollar store has like a few kind of light weights, and maybe that's a really good start for you. So maybe taking a look at that, but just trying to make sure you are getting those exercises in to keep your muscles nice and strong. Not only does it help your muscles, but it also helps your bones. And I always think, especially for seniors, it helps to maintain your independence. So, this idea of, you can still get out of a chair independently, you can still carry your groceries from your car to your home, you can still um, take a shower independently. You can still do your laundry, put your laundry away. All these little things we don't realize actually take quite a bit of strength if we have not been using our muscles. So we do want to make sure we are using our muscles and we are challenging them on a regular basis. The other thing that you also want to kind of sprinkle in there is this idea of balance exercises. And you can kind of do that kind of throughout your day. You don't necessarily have to spend additional amounts of time on balance exercises. You can put that either with your aerobic exercises, maybe when you're walking, you're trying to kind of challenge your balance a bit. Maybe when you're doing your strength exercises, trying to do some single leg or kind of, yeah, like kind of single leg exercises. So things like a lunge, um, maybe using certain machines, maybe using your bands, just trying to strengthen one leg at a time. Because a lot of times what happens is, myself included, we may have injured one leg or one side of our bodies, and then the other side ends up compensating too much. And then we end up forgetting to kind of make sure that the other side is actually exercising on a regular basis. So we do want to keep that in mind. The other thing that I really, really like about these new Canada guidelines is this again, this idea of not just thinking about those 150 minutes, not just thinking about exercising at a gym or kind of for dedicated exercise time, but this idea of sprinkling several hours of very light physical activity. And that can include standing, that can include walking. Again, it's going to be relative depending on your current health conditions. But just that idea of really trying to get away from sitting for too long. That's really, really become a very major problem in kind of the Canadian American society where we are very glued to our screens. So this idea of, sitting and watching video after video after video. And then before you know it, like 2 hours have gone by and can be quite guilty of this. So this idea we really need to work on making sure we are staying active throughout the day. Again, this is light physical activity. So don't feel like you've got to be working really hard, be like um, kind of that change in breathing kind of throughout the whole day. But this idea of just making sure we are standing, we are walking around, I always remember this one time where I had to drive somewhere that was 6 hours away. And one time I actually did that in one sitting, and it physically hurt to get out of the vehicle after 6 hours of sitting in one position without really ever moving. I'm kind of genuinely surprised my car lasted for the 6 straight hours, but I didn't realize how much pain I would be in when I got out of the vehicle. So that's kind of that physical activity component. But then we also have to think about sleep. And getting proper amounts of sleep is so important. And I think what often happens, especially for those who maybe are still working, maybe have a busy social life and family, and have all of these different projects going on, um, this idea of, you know what, it's okay, I'll cut down on sleep. I'll I'll get a coffee, I'll take a nap, I'll do this, I'll do that. I'll try to kind of find a way around this idea of needing sleep. But just study after study after study, they're showing the importance of sleep. To me, the thing that's most important or most interesting about sleep is the fact that while a lot of studies have shown that sleep is important and they've shown the negative impacts of not sleeping and the benefits of sleeping, the actual physiology and the actual kind of understanding why sleep is so important is still somewhat of a mystery. We still don't really know. Like, there's a lot of theories out there, but don't really have like an exact kind of reason as to why we have like why we need so much or why we need sleep. All we know is that you do. And it really does mess with your brain if you aren't getting a proper amount of sleep. So generally, the guideline is about 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep. So again, not this idea of, having a screen in front of our faces right up until the moment we're unconscious, being blared awake when we really needed several more hours of sleep, um, trying to make up for that with, large amounts of coffee or trying, like I said, trying to take like micro naps kind of throughout the day. Our bodies do really need that kind of consistent amount of sleep. Now, again, everybody's in a different life situation. So maybe there are maybe some reasons why you've got to modify your sleep schedule, but ideally, you do want to go for that 7 to 8 hours of very good quality sleep, uninterrupted sleep on a regular basis. So, another thing to really keep in mind is the idea of sedentary behavior, which I've kind of already talked about. But just this idea of we really want to limit the amount of time we are spending in sedentary behavior. So, this idea of like sitting for extended periods of time. Like I mentioned with my little car ride story, our bodies are not really meant to be kind of sitting for or just in literally any one position for too long. So whether it's sitting, standing, or laying down, it's just this idea of our bodies are made for motion. We really are made to kind of be in motion, be walking, be kind of moving around. So we do really want to cut that sedentary behavior. So the idea of limiting sedentary time to about 8 hours or less, and that does include no more than 3 hours of recreational screen time, and then breaking up long periods of sitting as often as possible. Now, maybe a couple of you are maybe you still have an office job, you work from home, you are in front of a computer, you don't really have too many choices in that. That is perfectly fine, but maybe what you can do is work on breaking those periods up. So, this idea of maybe every 45 minutes, every 50 minutes, getting up for it can even be 2 minutes. It doesn't you don't necessarily have to do a whole kind of physical activity workout, but really just kind of getting up maybe every 45 minutes, every hour, kind of getting up and moving around. You really do want to keep that body in motion. And that's where a lot of times, I've had people ask me about what is the best chair out there? What is the best back support? What is the best thing that I can put under my feet so that I can sustain this kind of 8 hours kind of sitting in front of my computer for work. And I always say, even if you get kind of the best ergonomically designed kind of equipment out there, at a certain point, your body's not going to be happy if it's kind of staying in one position for too long. So, you do really want to keep that in mind. Just trying to cut down on that sedentary activity time. And now, the other thing is, as you are getting more physically active, you want to start slowly increasing that intensity. And the thing is, if you are kind of being physically active on a regular basis, you're going to start noticing that maybe you can walk for longer periods of time. You can lift heavier weights. You can do more intense exercises. Like maybe if you really like using online exercise videos, you've noticed that at the beginning, maybe you're using their more kind of low intensity or moderate intensity exercises. And now because you've gotten so much better, you're using the higher intensity exercises. Whatever it is, do make sure you are trying to stay kind of as active as you can and trying to really challenge yourself. Because you really don't want to get into a rut and kind of just do the same exact exercises every single day. Because even if you find like an amazing exercise video out there, no exercise video is going to do absolutely everything. Right. So you do want to make sure that you are tackling different muscle groups, different goals, different ways of exercising as you're progressing through your exercise journey. Because it is not a very good thing to do the exact same exercises over and over and over again. Because you can wind up with like repetitive strain injuries. Or the other thing that I sometimes notice in clients who have actually done this is you get really, really strong in those muscles you've been working, but those muscles that you haven't been using have gotten weaker. So, like, it really throws your body off in this really, really weird kind of biomechanics because certain muscles are super, super strong. Certain muscles are really weak, and your body kind of learns to accommodate to it, and sometimes not in the best ways. So, it is good to kind of do a little bit of different things. And the thing is, there's so many different ways to be physically active, like, depending again what you have access to. If you want to go swimming, if you want to go biking, I know of seniors that go curling on a regular basis. I know seniors who love to go swimming, who love to go biking, um, or even kind of an indoor recumbent bikes. Maybe going to the gym, going to exercise classes, using online exercise videos. There's just so much out there that you can explore and just make sure it's something you really, really enjoy. Um, and it's just the more you challenge your body, you'd be surprised how much you can achieve. And one thing I always try to tell my clients is this idea of I can never guarantee results. We can never know the future. We can never know how much you're going to improve kind of in the future. But what we do know is that if we do nothing, we will get worse. If we don't exercise, if we don't keep moving, we will get worse. So there's not really there's just like a really good benefit to being physically active, and there are a lot of negatives to not being physically active. So you do really want to try to integrate this kind of throughout your week, throughout your day. And like I said, just find ways to make it really fun. And I really, really encourage you. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and we can kind of chat about kind of specific goals that you want to work towards. But otherwise, feel free to reach out and ask any questions. And I hope to see you all later. Thanks for joining. Bye.